The Sum of the Matter, Episode 1, The Backstory. The term deconstructing has been a struggle to wrap my mind around since I first heard it used several years ago. To be honest, I hated the word, but I was curious, and so I listened intently to the stories of others who had done it. In the not-so-distant past, those stories had been unbelievable to me. How could someone just walk away? Little did I know then that I too would be on the same path. If you had told me a few years ago that I would find myself here, I probably would have laughed in your face. My husband and I were the least likely to abandon our Christian faith, and yet, here we are. We are in the process of deconstructing our belief system and trying to rebuild through critical thinking and reasoning. Will we find the answers to all of our questions? Probably not. Can we rebuild something that is still meaningful? Probably. We know there are many out there like us, searching for truth, and we know how lonely the process can be. We are so thankful that we still have each other and that we are allowing ourselves patience as we walk through this challenging road. We know others have not been as fortunate. There are so many voices and opinions out there that it is truly weariness to the soul. Our advice: don't leave one ditch just to fall into the other. You can seek out truth. You can study. You don't have to have a degree or a title. You are smart enough. You can reason for yourself. You can ask the tough questions. You are not alone. Using common sense and what we already think we know about the way the world works, we can analyze and think critically about the documents we currently have from antiquity. They must tell us something, right? Do we have every work ever written? No. Do we have the complete library? No. Throughout civilizations, have stories been written that are completely false? Yes. Do we as humanity continue to write fictional, entertaining stories? Yes. How do we know the difference? Do we try to make sense of the world? Yes. Can we form our best opinions from the accounts that we have? Probably. Are all of our thoughts going to be exactly the same? No. Do humans always live up to their full potential in the best and most moral way possible? Absolutely not. In general, however, I think it is probably safe to say that everyone has some kind of very similar moral code, and we do know the difference between good and evil. Why is that? There are many religions with similar creation narratives, flood accounts, and moral codes claiming to have the answers. What sets them apart? It would seem that most originated through a revelation to a single person, and one claims to be revealed to an entire people. Some are completely not possible, and one is very plausible. Can we fully understand the ancient texts? No. Can a simple, common theme and morality be determined that works for all peoples for all time? I believe so. My parents left the Catholic faith and became non-denominational, evangelical Christians right around the time that I was born, or shortly thereafter. I don't remember anything prior to church. I was raised in it. The same was true for my husband. His parents left the Catholic faith and joined the Assemblies of God. He was raised in it as well as far back as he can remember. We both prayed the sinner's prayer around 5 or 6 and continued to be immersed in youth programs, Sunday schools, VBS, you name it. It was our culture. It was our identity. We were high school sweethearts, married young, and continued in the faith. Although we were faithful attendees at church, we struggled to commit fully to a local body. We almost took the plunge at a congregation where our hopes and dreams of true fellowship had really started to materialize. However, when we took the membership class, it was presented to us as seriously as a marriage covenant, and we were not ready to commit. Shortly after, that church imploded, and we saw ugly in Christians like you wouldn't believe. Something we'd never seen before or experienced. If I had to pinpoint a significant shift in our lives, although neither of us knew it at the time, that was probably the beginning of the turning point. We bounced around to a few different churches following the implosion, and a few years later, we decided to move several states away to the Bible Belt. We just assumed we would be able to find a good church anywhere. Quickly, we realized that that was not going to be the case. So I started to delve into online offerings. Most churches post their sermons there now, and through a course of events, latched on to Reformed teachings. Previously, at the church that had imploded, we were introduced to the terms Calvinist and Arminian. We had no previous experience with either, and probably at the time fell somewhere in between the two philosophies. Not anymore. I dove headfirst into Reformed philosophy, and it seemed to make the most sense of what I was reading in the New Testament. Mind you, at this stage in my life, I was in my mid-30s and had never fully read through the entire Bible. Around this time as well, we were becoming more serious in our homeschool. Our children were out of the toddler stage and getting older, and it was a goal of ours to read through the entire Bible together, and so we finally did it, from beginning to end. I remembered as we were working our way through, reading verses that I was familiar with, specifically from the Old Testament, that I had heard in church, that I remembered being taught on, and just wondering to myself, why the heck is that verse here? Seriously, what I was told about that verse seemed to have absolutely nothing to do with the narrative that I was reading, because I was reading it from start to finish. But I just continued on and stuffed those thoughts somewhere. We then faced one of the most challenging situations in our marriage. My husband was being deployed and would be away from us for many months. We had only been in our new state for less than 2 years. We hadn't found a church yet, and basically had no friends. Now my husband was leaving? So I did what any good Christian would do and delved even deeper into my faith and Reformed theology, pointing my husband to it as well. We both started listening to the same pastor preach during that time that he was away. It helped us feel closer and connected. Come to find out, this church was within driving distance from our home. I was definitely feeling the pull to attend that congregation. It would be our Christian duty and sacrifice, even though the drive was an hour and a half one way. So when my husband returned home, that's what we did. We finally got baptized, became members, and we're all in. Things were okay for a little while, the getting to know you phase, and we just kept pushing. If we keep showing up, eventually it will click, right? We'll be accepted. We'll have true fellowship. This church is different. They are actually Christians. They actually read their Bibles. The word is being preached expositionally every Sunday. But then we decided to take a homesteading class from a local couple in our town. Little did we know that they had some very different beliefs, and they wove these into their classes. No big deal, right? We were sure in our faith, sure in what we believed, but she said some things that we had never thought about before, which raised a ton of questions, and that's when the wheels started coming off. Were Easter and Christmas actual biblical holidays? What are the commands that we are supposed to follow? Why did and do the Jews reject Jesus as their Messiah? These are just a sampling, and so we began searching for answers to these questions and many more, reading and studying whatever we could get our hands on. And block by block, the foundation that we thought we had came tumbling down. We considered everything we could, from as many perspectives as possible. Things just weren't adding up. There were inaccuracies, historical problems, and when we compared the two testaments and the so-called fulfilled prophecies of the Messiah, the books just didn't go together. We couldn't unsee what was plainly there, what was right in front of us, what we had read for ourselves. And well, that's where we are now. And that is why we are sharing with you and hoping that you too will seek out truth for yourselves. Does the Bible actually say those things? We have since left the church, even though they have not officially released us yet. Maybe we'll go into that another time. We certainly are not claiming to know anything. We can't answer all the questions that will undoubtedly arise. But if what we're reading is true, then we have to share. We are still searching ourselves, still asking tough questions. We have explored other religions, but we also haven't completely thrown the baby out with the bathwater yet. We still believe that there has to be a God, and if that is true, then God must have given us a manual for how to live this life. There really is no way to prove an afterlife, and if this one life is all we have been given, then we need to know what to do with it. No escapism theology, no hoping it will be right or better in the life to come. There simply is no proof for that. There has to be a purpose in all of this. We just can't fathom anything else. We don't believe that the Christian Bible is truth anymore, but we are still looking and studying the Hebrew Bible, or the Old Testament is how you might be familiar with it, especially the Pentateuch, the first 5 books. Our approach is the simple and plain meaning only. If the text doesn't say it, then we don't write it in, but we do ask ourselves questions to consider. We contemplate the meaning of Hebrew words and their English translations in hopes of gaining a fuller understanding of the ancient text. We do believe that the Hebrew Bible has a consistent theme, fits in with a common sense approach, and that what it teaches can still be applied today. We hope you join us as we explore the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The sum of the matter is what follows.